Hey guys, Brian Castro for Better Chess Trading. This is part two of the game analysis process series that I started. In the previous video, I played a game on ICC and recorded my thoughts. And in today's video, we're going to be doing the first two steps of the four-step game analysis process. Hey guys, here we are going to start the analysis process for the game that I played. Actually, I played the game yesterday, and I'm going to be doing this today and recording the first couple steps in the analysis process. So the first step, and if you look at my article in my video, I call self-annotation. And this is where you want to capture the thoughts, the variations, how you felt during the game. And as a general note, too, I wanted to, how much time should you be spending on this? Because obviously we have other chess activities to do. And my general, there's a couple answers to that. The first one, it depends on how complicated a position is, for example, or how important the game was. How representative of the type of play that you want to have is this game. For example, if you're playing blitz games, you might not want to spend very much time analyzing a game. For example, this game was a 15-minute game. It took about half an hour. So total time I might want to spend is maybe 45 minutes to an hour, depending on what I find. If it's something that, if you're playing one of your tournament games with long time control, you might want to spend a couple hours on it, depending on again, its relevance to your improvement. If it was a game that you won, you might want to spend more time on it, but you probably don't need to spend as much time unless you made any big mistakes. It's your losses you want to focus on, and games that have maybe common threads. So what I'm going to do here, I'm using Skid as my database. It's a free database, and it's pretty powerful. I've also used ChessBase in the past, but when my computer crashed, I decided not to upgrade to the new ChessBase there. In any case, any chess database will do, and there's a lot out there, both commercial and free databases. But what you want to do is take a look at, just go through your game and start putting down your thoughts. So that's the first step. I'm just going to do a few of go through this a little bit, maybe show a little from the beginning and the middle and the end, so that we go on to the next step, just so you get an idea, because I do discuss this in my video on how to analyze your game, but I wanted to show you how I do it. Okay, so if we take a look at this game, we'll start out here and just kind of go through the game, and here I might put a little note, and let me just get to my comment editor here, and I might just put Benoni structure. Then as I go through the game here, I will put put notes as they come along. And here it's kind of, there's no set way to do this, but the key is to try to capture your thoughts that you had during the game. Now, so in this position, my opponent played c takes b4, and I had intended, if he had played something like c takes d4, I would have taken with the d pawn. So that's something you might want to note, for example. Just note the variations that you came across in your game. We go through a little more of this. There are a couple positions here where, and I'm kind of going a little quicker here. And again, the idea is not that you're not going to be able to catch every single thought that you had, and it would take too long to write them all down. But you want to get a general idea of your thought process, especially when you stop for a little while to take a few minutes on a move here. For example, in this position here, when I played queen to e2, the idea of clearing the back rank, as well as playing bishop to a6 at some point. And then what we're going to do in later steps of the process is think about these thoughts and maybe how what assumptions that we made that maybe were incorrect. Another area here, if I go forward, here I played bishop to a6, and rook to c8 was played. And my idea here was that although I thought of bishop takes a6, with the idea here that queen takes a6, and now I have control over the c8 square. During the actual game, I didn't actually consider what would have happened if he just played rook to c8, which would have been an important thing to consider in any case. Actually, maybe during the game I figured at the very least I could always exchange it. So maybe I made that mental shortcut. So that's something I want to note as well. So let me just type that in. Didn't really consider this move, but thought that I could just capture if I couldn't come up with something else. And all of these chess-based software, if you don't use it already, are fairly easy to use in terms of commenting, and it's kind of nice. Actually, it's really for me, it's kind of fun. That's how I first got the ChessBase Lite many years ago, and it was a free download from ChessBase. And being able to annotate my games was something that I enjoyed quite a bit. And I would always submit games to US Chess for the Chess Life magazine. I actually got one published. In any case, it can be fun if you don't do it already. It can be enjoyable, especially with the online games. There's really no excuse because most of the chess servers like ICC and Chess.com, they already record your games for you. And here it emailed it to me, and I just moved it into my database. So there's really no reason why you can't record your games and analyze them. It's a little bit different if you're playing over the board, but again, if you're serious about getting better at chess, it's something that you're going to want to do. Let me just go forward a little bit here, and for example, this position, I might want to put down that I considered taking, and also that I realized that taking here was bad because I lose my queen, and that I didn't really consider any other moves. So I might want to make the comment here, really just considered taking the queen. I didn't think that getting off the c-file to preserve the queens would have been good for me. Okay, so it doesn't have to be anything too complicated. And again, you might not remember every single thought that you had, but the idea is to try to capture as much as possible, because it's from that material that you're going to be able to analyze not only the moves you made, but your thought process, other aspects. For example, there was a time when I wasn't getting much sleep. Actually, that happens now a lot with the kids. And noting your energy levels and your mood during the game. Or if you had a bad day at work and then you went and played a league game at the evening, it might have clouded your judgment. So those are things you might want to note. And so I would do that, for example, I would do that, at the beginning of the game. You might want to put a comment, was tired this morning, didn't get much sleep. So you can take that into account. So I hope you get the general idea of this part of this step. Just a couple caveats. It's important for you to be honest with yourself when you're doing this analysis as much as possible. I remember doing some post-mortem analysis with one of my opponents, and he blundered a pawn away. And throughout our discussion, he was like, "Oh, I didn't get enough compensation for that pawn." As if he was sacrificing the pawn and didn't, and I've done that too, so I'm not just saying it to him, but that's the most recent episode of it. But the idea, though, is just try to capture what the actual thoughts were. If you missed something, like, in a couple areas in this game, I missed a response. You want to put that down. You don't have to be self-critical about it too much. Just say, I didn't see this this, or I didn't consider this variation. That's actually very important, because I think sometimes when we're analyzing, I even see this in some of the books I read, where people analyze their own games, where their recollection of their assessment of the position, or their evaluation of the position, is much more favorable to them. And some of these are older books, before computers came around. So I think we could move on to the next step, but I think that's a general idea. If you have any questions about that, leave a comment, and then we can talk about that some more. But let's move on to the next step. Okay, in the next step of the game, we want to identify key positions in our game that we're going to spend a little further time on. So this first step, like I said, shouldn't take too long. Just go through the game, put your notes down, your thoughts, your variations, as much as you can remember them, and as much time as you want to allot for that. But then this area here, you want to look at a few areas. And now there's a few guidelines, and I write more about this in my article about this, which I'll put in the link in the description. But there's a few areas you want to focus on. And I'll just give you a few examples, and we'll look at it during the game. The first one is where you left opening theory, or where you kind of lost your way in the opening. So if I were to go here, so far this looks pretty good for me, but right around this area, I was kind of out of my opening knowledge, or sort of on my own. In fact, this might not be a specific theoretical line, but just somewhere where I'm not as familiar with the plans, or I'm not recollecting that. So you want to note that, where that is, and then you're going to want to look that up. And again, that's a later step. But so that's your first key position. The other one I just kind of refer to is any position where you were confused or surprised by an opponent's move. So let me see if I can find one of those. Actually, here is one here, and it's not that hard, but my opponent played queen to c7, and during the game, in fact, if you watch the video, I think I was visibly surprised by this. But this is one where I didn't consider what my opponent was, that as a response. And I probably should have. The whole time I was talking about the fact that he couldn't get onto the c file, but one of the purposes of moving his bishop here to this position was that so he could move his queen onto the c file to contest my queen. So again, I'll want to note that. And so what I'll put here, I'll make a comment here that I didn't consider my opponent putting the queen on the c file. And typically what I'll do here in my annotation of this game in the database is make a question. So I said, what move should I have considered? And why didn't I see this? Now, in this particular case, it could be that I was in time trouble, or that it was a little fast time control. But the point is, whatever the reason is, you might want to look into that if that's important. Let's see if we can find another couple of spots here that we want to note. As we go through this. Areas where you're transitioning from one part of the game to the other. So in this case, that last position would have been one, but right about here. So in this position, I'm really deciding what type of endgame I'm going to enter. Am I going to enter an endgame with a knight versus a knight, or as we did in the game, I offered a bishop versus knight ending. So I want to consider that as well. So in my game notes, I will put down what type of endgame do I want to enter. Now, you can examine other aspects of the position as well. This is just a trigger. The question is just a trigger to look into this a little bit further. Okay, and let's go through some more of the game. And again, there's a couple ways to find these key positions. I kind of, one way is to do what I'm doing right now, which is just kind of go through and try to remember some key points. Here is another one that I was looking at. And this is a key position here because I really am deciding the pawn structure here. And one area would be, um, I played h3, which allowed him to create a queen majority and a passed pawn here. And so um, I might want to put something like, let's see, consider f3 instead. And I might want to put a question to myself. Did I consider f3? And then I think I did, but I wanted to preserve the pawn island. And I think that's actually what happened in the game. So this is a learning point here where I can, at a later step in the process, I will either talk to my coach or look at it with a chess engine or just do some analysis by myself and help to understand that. What I might also do is look up in my endgame encyclopedia the different pawn endgames and see what might have been the best way to do it. But I want to, the idea here is that you're not going to be able to do deep analysis on every single position. So you need to be selective with the time you have. For example, this game, I don't really want to spend more than an hour analyzing this game. I might for this game since I'm going to be since I'm making a video about it. But a game usually of this length, a little bit more of a casual game. I just want to spend a little time to make sure I get the most out of it that I can in terms of my learning. So you want to identify those key positions. I think I said identify 3 or 4 per game. Again, it depends. If you're playing a 5-minute blitz game, just find the one position that you thought could have changed the game around. If you're playing a long time control championship in your city or an over the board tournament, then you might want to find more areas. If you're working with a coach, he can help you find the key areas. When I work with my coach, we go through the games, and there's a few areas that he'll say, okay, here's what you should have done this, or you should have looked at this, or here's where your plan went wrong. Well, those are key areas that I need to look at because maybe you can also find patterns in certain types of play. And we'll look at that in the next step, which will be in the next video. But for now, I think you get the idea. The first step is self-annotation, try to capture your ideas. In the second step, you're going to identify key areas for future investigation, which will be the next step. So we'll talk about that in the next video, but I hope you found this helpful. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. Check back soon for the next installment of this series. I'll probably be uploading that within the next day or two. Also, if you enjoyed this video, press the like button, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to get future updates. Until I see you next time, good luck with your chess.